Hello class, welcome back to our online discussion. And for this lesson, we will discuss about Arnis. So, like all martial arts, Arnis is primarily defensive, encompassing hand-to-hand combat, gruppling, and disarming techniques. However, the fighting style also includes the use of bladed weapons and sticks, in addition to improvised weapons. So, a baton, like cane, is the primary melee tool employed and the weapon used in officiated Arnis competitions. So the competitive Arnis generally takes one of the two forms, the performance base, they call it Anyu model, or the combative Leban. So the Anyu competitions are judged on the basis of the overall choreography of the performances, including the gracefulness, strength, and force employed. Meanwhile, the Liban forms test participants' agility and reactions as competitions are judged based on the number of strikes inflicted. Although most Liban competitions exclude the body contact such as grappling, blocks, and disarming an opponent using the hands or feet, so there are some exemptions where full contact is permitted. So the objectives of this lesson, after going through this lesson, you are expected to first appreciate the history of Arnis. Second one, identify the modern Arnis rules and regulations. Identify the different equipment, facilities, and qualifications. And lastly, demonstrate the code of ethics in the game. So we will discuss first about the history of Arnis. So martial arts have always held their place in the history as practices of brave warriors who fear nothing. So for so many years, kings and rulers showed the ultimate respect to those who feared nothing and would hold their weapons and terrorize their enemies by just their mere presence to protect and serve. So the Arnis warriors were always respected in their communities for always putting their lives on their hands for their tribes and their nation as a whole. So generally, Arnis involves a lot of mighty martial arts, and not just the martial arts but also practices that have changed the face of the history. For so many decades and centuries, practitioners would love to give what it takes to become renewed Arnis warriors who would protect their nation against invaders and attackers. So traditionally, Arnis were also known as Kali and Eskrima. So all three names combine several practices of the national martial arts of the Philippines and are still sometimes used interchangeably. So these ancient practices are concerned with weapon-based fighting that involves the use of swords, knives, daggers, and also sticks and other non-traditional weapons. So Arnis also involves Arnis fighting techniques that involve no weapons whatsoever and depend solely on the power of the body. So in addition to the high and respectful status the Arnis warriors used to hold in Filipino society. So again, Arnis has developed and evolved to become a traditional symbol of Filipino culture, history, and essence. So it is an integral part of pop culture in Southeast Asia. Ever since Arnis became popular in 1600s, so the practitioners understood that it takes a lot of devotion, dedication, and practice to become an Arnis warriors. So masters would spend years training their apprentices and designing fatal weapons that don't need to be used twice. So over the years, Arnis has become more than just another form of martial arts. So it became a crucial part of Filipino culture, taking its place as a practice that has changed the face of history on so many occasions. So in 2009, the National Congress of the Philippines declared that the Arnis is the national sports and martial arts of the Philippines. So it promotes the nationalism and patriotism and pays the tribute to the ancient and mighty heroes who have done so much for their country. So nobody can forget how these warriors fought against the Spanish invasion using only their swords. Not just the swords, but also bodies and willpower to grant their countries its freedom. So that is the history of Arnis. Now we will talk about the Arnis today. Today, Arnis still holds its status as a symbol of heroism and devotion. However, we can safely say that wars are past, that the days of physical contact where only the bravest and most courageous would win, since it is all now about pressing buttons and using chemicals. So the Arnis has become rather a symbol of love, brotherhood, and a means to develop a friendship. So the masters and apprentices go that extra mile to tame their bodies and minds. Now, it is not about the defeating and neutralizing the opponent, but it is the practice that aims at improving the skills of players. Hence, the Arnis rules and regulations must also be developed. So we will discuss about the code of ethics. This code governs the practices of players, masters, and everybody who is interested in Arnis as a national martial arts. So the practitioners will show great respect to their masters and to senior practitioners. So the players will always salute each other before and after any encounter. I think the other sports also applying this ones. For example, taekwondo or other sports. Since Arnis goes way back in history, it still holds some of the ancient traditions that focus on respecting the elders and the most experienced ones. So the junior players are not to challenge senior ones unless it is a part of the game. So on the other hand, senior players will always share their experience and knowledge with the less experienced ones in order to help them develop and become better players. Now let's proceed to the facilities. In order to safely practice Arnis, the play area should be a square that has a side of 8 meters with at least 2 meters of free space around it. So there should be 2 inches wide lines drawn in a different color that will set the exact play area in order to make sure that the players know exactly where they can move. So as per general Arnis rules and regulations, the play area should be flat, okay, as you can observe here, not just flat but also smooth and clean. So of course, this has nothing to do with the conditions where earlier warriors had to practice Arnis, since they sometimes fought in the jungle or on the shore, so they had to go through rough terrains, rocky or pebbly grounds, or even fight their way through thick bushes. And now we'll discuss about the equipment. This includes the weapons that warriors will use for practice and for professional competitive matches. Unlike in the past, most of today's practitioners will use a padded stick. Okay, this one is a padded stick. And then instead of a sharp, deadly weapons. So these padded sticks have the comfortable grip and come into two colors. We have blue and red. Okay. Then the players are to wear head protectors. This one, and not just a head protectors but also body protectors, since the main aim of the Arnis is to develop the skills of practitioners. The aim stands very far from where the original practice started. So in the past, everything about Arnis was designed to make sure that the fight will end soon enough with only one survivor. So weapons were so sharp that they could split the enemy in half with one strike. Sometimes fighter would carry two weapons at a time to inflict dual strikes that would end any fight in their favor in a matter of minutes. And lastly, we'll discuss about the qualifications. Today, it is all about agreed upon Arnis rules and regulations that all players must comply with. So all players should meet the age requirement set by the organizing committee. They should also be physically fit for competition. Since there are certain rules that will apply to everybody, all players must accept the decisions of the referees without any questions. If there are any disputes, the coach will have the right to ask for clarifications after the match. So the judges can give a score that will range between 1 and 10 with zero point 0.5 increments. So the degree of difficulty and creativity can have a great impact on your score. So after collecting the scores of individual players or the whole team, they will be arranged in the descending order from highest to the lowest. So the Arnis has gained popularity all over the world with a lot of practitioners who have never set foot in the Philippines. So these guidelines, rules, and regulations are respected by the whole community and facilitate the practice of these wonderful martial arts in a safe environment. So this is just an overview about the Arnis. I hope that you have learned something from this online lecture and don't forget to answer the evaluation quiz. Bye bye.